Hi, welcome back. Trigonometric equations in quadratic form. Let's see if what we can do about it. Quadratic equations, as you know, it is in this form: ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. There are a lot of ways to solve a quadratic equation. If it's simple quadratic equation, then you can do the squared method, you can do the factoring, you can do the quadratic formula and completing the squares, or by graph also. Okay, let's see if we can do that. For example, here we have 2 sine squared x plus sine x is equal to 0. Then we have sine x as our common factor. Then we have 2 sine x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then we have sine x is equal to 0. And we have sine 2 sine x plus 1 is equal to 0. With 2 sine x is equal to negative 1 if we subtract both sides of the equation by 1. And we have sine x is equal to negative 1/2. Okay, and 1/2 is a very familiar. We have this 30, and we have 1 there, and we have 2 there. We have square root of 3 there. So we have so sine x. So our x here is pi over 6, but we have negative. That means it is on the 3rd quadrant and 4th quadrant. So we have 3rd quadrant now, we have pi plus pi over 6. And then we have 7 pi over 6. And we have another x. We have 2 pi minus, in the 4th quadrant, we have pi over 6. Then we have 11 pi over 6. Here we have x is equal to 0. Why? Because when sine 0 degrees, or sine 0 is equal to 0. Okay? And then we have another, when it is 0, then we have 2 pi, and then we have 2 pi. So our x now, if we write all our x, we have 0, we have pi, we have pi 7 pi over 6, and then we have 11 pi over 6, and then we have 2 pi. How about this one? We have 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x minus 1. If we tell cosine x, if we let the cosine x equal to t, then we have 2t squared plus t minus 1 is equal to 0. So if we can factor that, we have plus 1 there, minus 1 there, because we have negative there. That means this is 2t, and this is t, because 2t multiplied by positive 1 is 2t, and then negative 1 times t is negative t. So we have positive t there. That is equal to 0. That means we have cosine x plus 1 multiplied by 2 cosine x minus 1 is equal to 0. So we have cosine x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then we have cosine x is equal to negative 1. The other one, we have cosine x minus 1, or 2 cosine x. Then we have 2 cosine x is equal to 1, and then we have cosine x is equal to 1/2. Okay, let's start with cosine x is equal to 1/2. Cosine, that means that's 60 degrees. So we have x is equal to pi over 3. And then in the fourth quadrant, we have pi over 3. We have x is equal to pi, 2 pi minus pi over 3. Then we have 5 by 3 here. By 3 there's 6, 5 pi over 3. Okay, and then we have cosine x is equal to -1, and we know that cosine is only negative in the second quadrant and at the third quadrant. So that means cosine x is, we have equal to -1, then x is equal to pi. Okay, so if we are going to write all our x now, then we have pi over 3, and then we have pi, and then we have 5 pi over 3. Okay, let's solve some more. Solve for x now, giving your answers as exact values. We can start with the first there. We have cosine 2x plus sine x is equal to 0. But we know that cosine 2x is equal to cosine squared x minus sine squared x. Since I have already sine there, then I can transform this cosine 2x into all sines. Then we have 1 minus sine squared x, that is for the cosine squared x. I hope you remember that cosine squared x plus sine squared x is equal to 1. That is where I got this. Okay, minus sine squared x. Then we have 1 minus 2 sine squared x. So if we're going to substitute now cosine 2x, then we have 1 minus 2 sine x squared, and sine squared x plus sine x is equal to 0. So if we're going to multiply all the terms with -1, then we have 2 sine squared x minus sine x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, so almost similar to our first example. Now we have 2 sine x, and then we have sine x. We have negative this time, so this one will become negative and this one will become positive, because 2 sine x multiplied by negative will become -2 sine x, and we have added by sine x, then we have negative sine x. So we have 2 sine x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then we have 2 sine x is equal to -1, as you can see there, if we subtract both sides of the equation by 1. And then 2 sine x, it's time to divide both sides of the equation by 2. Then we have sine x is equal to -1/2. And -1/2 is very similar. That is 30 degrees, or pi over 6, 1/2 there. So we have our x now is equal to, it's negative, that means we have on the third quadrant, So we have pi plus pi over 6. Then we have 7 pi over 6. And on the first quadrant also, we have 2 pi minus pi over 6. Then we have 11 pi over 6. Okay, and then we have the other one. We have, if we do this, then we have sine x is minus 1 is equal to 0. Then we have sine x is equal to 1. So we have x is equal to pi over 2. And that's it. Pi over 2. So our x now, or our x is, we have pi over 2, we have 7 pi over 6, and 11 pi over 6. Let's try the next one, this one. Okay, 2 cosine squared x is equal to 3 sine x. Then we have 2 minus, I multiplied by 1 minus sine squared x. Why? Because I want to have all of them is equal to, I need to transform cosine x into sine x. That's the reason why. 3 sine x. Then we have 2 minus 2 sine squared x is equal to 3 sine x. If we subtract both sides of the equation by 3 sine x, such that this is 0, then we have negative 2 sine squared x minus 3 sine x is equal to plus 2. Plus 2 is equal to 0. If we multiply all the terms by negative 1, then we have 2 sine squared x plus 3 sine x minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, then we have 2 sine x. We have positive here. That means we have plus 2 there. So we have 4 already. It means that is 1, negative 1, and then we have sine x here is equal to 0. So for the first one, we have 2 sine x minus 1 is equal to 0. And then 2 sine x is equal to 1, adding both sides of the equation. And now we'll divide both sides of the equation by 2, and we have 1/2. And we know that x is 1/2 when it is pi over 6. And when x is equal to pi minus pi over 6 on the second quadrant. So we have 5 pi over 6. And then the next one, because it's 1/2, the next one is sine x is equal to plus 2. Is equal to 0. Subtracting both sides of the equation by 2 is, we have negative 2. But the highest value for a sine x is positive and negative 1. That means this is now no solution. They are talking outside. So we have only x is equal to, we have pi over 6, and we have 5 pi over 6. Okay, I think I will stop there, and in my next video I will be discussing some more examples, and I really thank you for choosing me to learn with me, and I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon also. Have a nice day.